Of the Buddy Martin Show. It's Tell It Like It Is Tuesday.
Taco Tuesday!
Florida State playoff rankings, and is the Gators hot finish has recruits flipping all over the place.
Freaking out, man!
All that and much more with Rob Browns from SEC Sidelines, Brendan Martin of Gator Bait Media, and yours truly, the host, Lauren Meadows, on the Tuesday night edition of the Buddy Martin Show. Here we go.
Yes, it's time again for Buddy Martin. Call him up and tell him what you're thinking. But be kind because he's doing the best he can.
Better, stronger, faster.
Mama says that alligators are ornery because they got all them teeth but no toothbrush.
Hey, what if the voice calls while you're gone?
Take a message.
Bye.
You ready, champ?
I'm ready for this my whole life.
I'm incapable of small talk. But that's why you love me, right?
Kind of intimidating to be in the presence of so many great athletes.
Welcome to the Tuesday night edition of the Buddy Martin Show. I'm your host, Lauren Meadows, here with Rob Brown of SEC Sidelines, Brendan Martin of SEC Sidelines, GatorBaitMedia.com, and all things Gator Bait Media.
And your heart. And your heart and minds is what I'm after. I want your heart and mind.
Florida knocks off bitter rival Florida State at 31-11 in a game that Florida basically dominated the entire game, and had a little scrummy run after the game, a little something. You know, Mike Norvell was a little upset and in his feelings a little bit, doing the Drake, you know, Kiki, do you love me? He was in his feelings a little bit. There you go. But, you know, Rob, a dominating performance by Florida, one they needed to have off of wins against LSU and Ole Miss. Went up to Tallahassee, took care of business, kind of a workman's-like, blue collar, as I wrote, kind of a blue collar win, but one you got to have in a rivalry game, Rob.
Oh, you do, and you know Florida looks really good. They're such a more confident team, and I just again keep going back that last 5 games, everybody was counting them out, except the people in the locker room and Billy Napier. You know, we've been harshly critical of him. And as people in the media are going to do, they're going to be. You got a high standard at Florida. But, yeah, dominant performance, took care of business. One thing I'm noticing about Florida, they don't show up flat. That's a healthy locker room. So I think, you know, the recruits are flipping out over it.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, and we'll get to that. You know, some of the flipping that's going on with early signing day. What I really consider signing day now.
Yeah,
it's pretty much signing day.
February
now,
is just lame.
Yeah. February is just kind of but that December date. But you know, Rob, when we look at the game, it was kind of interesting because based on the way that some of the other rivalry games played out earlier in the day and things like that, it seemed like almost every team, and particularly my home state Buckeyes to a fault, everybody was kind of almost playing it real careful. And it looked like in that first quarter, not that I thought Florida was in any trouble at all, but they were just kind of almost feeling themselves. It was almost like a boxing match where you take the first couple rounds, you know, to kind of see where it's going, and then you start throwing those body blows and putting those combinations together. And then you saw in that second quarter, you know, getting that touchdown to go up 14 to nothing, and then kind of carrying it on from there. And even though it wasn't the most entertaining game, if you really understand the X's and O's of football, it really was a solid game by the Florida Gators, getting, you know, 8 sacks, forcing 8 fumbles, recovering 5. It's really the way you want to dominate a football team from an X and O standpoint.
Well, I mean, recruits are looking at this and seeing the way the defense is playing. They're having fun. They're flying around out there. And you go back in these last 5 games, Georgia's a 20-all game with 7 minutes left. DJ strains his hamstring. He didn't tear it or pull it, I don't think. But the Texas game sucked. But it was they hadn't had a game like that all season. And then you get LSU, you get Ole Miss, and you get Florida State. 7-5. You go to the bowl game. Where are they going? Tampa, Jacksonville, Florida fans. Hey, a lot of years, why would we want to go? This year, it's going to be a celebration of the comeback of Florida football. And I'm looking at what they're doing in recruiting. They went from the 40s. Florida's going to finish 12th or higher in recruiting. And then, you know what? They'll get some guys out of the portal. But I think they're going to try to rebuild the program through high school. But like I said, I picked them to win 8 games preseason. Can't tell you exactly. I didn't hit every game right, but go back and look at Tennessee, Brendan and Lauren. Damn it. That's a game y'all had. But that Florida brand, tradition never graduates.
Well,
that's something those kids remember.
agree. And look, all the talk this year about transfer portal, right? And at what Lane Kiffin's been the genius of the transfer portal and how important is the transfer portal. And I've been, echoing these comments as well. But look at really in the end, DJ Lagway is not a transfer portal guy. That recruit is why Billy Napier probably still has a job right now. So let's like Rob always says, the free market always resets itself and fixes itself in the end. Here we are in the end. We're talking really about how important recruiting is in development of young athletes and how important that is, because look at the difference that a Lagway, a kid that can come in and believes in the system, in what's going on. And you have such great success.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's one of the things when you look at it. I think that, recruiting and building organically is still a thing, but you got to kind of navigate that. And I think where maybe Ole Miss may have overshot is, bringing in over 40 transfers and not building from an organic base to where, if those guys don't work out or something just doesn't hit right, then you're in trouble. But now you got a DJ Lagway, you got a Trey Wilson coming back, you're adding a Vernell Brown the third, at the recruiting, with some of the skilled positions. You're going to lose some guys, but I was talking to Mike Peterson. I actually saw him at a basketball game last night. You talk about a guy like Justice Boone, who is entered the transfer portal. And not only are guys, they're coming and leaving the program, coming and going, but a guy like Justice Boone is sitting with Mike Peterson, and they're discussing not Justice Boone staying, but hey, I want you to go to a program that's going to appreciate you. So not only when guys are transferring, they have a culture in place to where I want you to go to a good situation. So here's the things you need to think about. So not only when guys are leaving the program, they're leaving the program in a good state of mind and then saying, hey, look at Florida. This is where, you might want to be able to play. And we've talked about it before. Billy Napier, in our criticism, we always throw that asterisk out there that those that are involved in this program absolutely love and believe in him. They do. They believe in what he's doing. They believe in how it's going. And like you alluded to it, Rob, I think that lends itself to teams that don't show up flat when we get back to the X and O's of the football thing. And so you have this, and none of us ever thought this team wasn't equipped to win 7 to 8 games. Like I even wrote an article, 7 reasons for 7 wins, and we thought there might be an 8th. Now they got 7. Now we're sitting at maybe looking at an 8th. But it was just a frustration, Brendan, and we won't go back to last year, but even this year, that you had all these pieces and they weren't coming together. And Brendan, you've been as critical as I am. What do you think do you think Lagway was the catalyst for that change? Or do you think that the team just, the continuous changing the way that they practiced and preparing, finally the rubber met the road and this team finally got to it the way they should have been playing the past, 7 to 8 weeks?
Yeah. Well, Rob, on the show, we Rob show, SEC Sideline, plug 9 a.m. Eastern, 8
Absolutely.
a.m. Memphis time, where Rob is. That's is my Memphis time. Got a prayer.
Yeah.
I don't know. We had Ellis John on Monday, who is fantastic to have on Mondays, by the way. He's great, breaks down the weekend. And I asked him the question because he knows Billy really well. He knows, and he really is a big fan of his. He thinks he's a fantastic coach. So he's got a very positive perspective. But I said to him, is Billy Napier, still where he is if Graham Mertz doesn't get hurt? And he said, and he always answers honestly. He's like, he said, that's a hard question, but no, he's like, but these are the things in coaching that happens, and you adjust. And I agree. I'm not one to go look back and say, oh yeah, well he, coulda, shoulda, wouldas don't really make sense to me. It's like, what do you do with your opportunity? And clearly, Billy Napier has done the best, with what is in front of him. So I guess to answer your question is, people want to jump on me about being a Billy Napier hater. Okay, I don't hate anybody. I love the Gators, and I want the best for the Gators. If the Gators are winning, and then I'm all for it. Am I sold on Billy Napier being the head coach of the University of Florida? No, I am not. And I don't think he's the guy. And I don't think that this season makes him the guy. No.
Okay. Well, that's something to get into here in a minute. What I will say, wow, I didn't expect that, but I
just don't think he's the guy. I don't think he's the offensive prowess. Everything that I've already said. I think there were a couple times in there at the end of Ole Miss game. He's like, God, you're trying to give it away with some of these play calls, man. Like, I was like, here we go.
Well, I think, I think it kind of lends itself to, and I had the discussion with some of the guys up in the press box, at Florida State, was the fact that people need to understand, and whether you agree with this philosophy of football or not, but I coached for a guy when I was coaching Durham, North Carolina. If the defense is playing well, he is not going to do anything to put the field position, put defense in peril. And that's what Billy Napier is going to do. So he has a defense that is playing well. And we mentioned how bad the defense has been. Everybody talks about quarterback and offensive coordinator and things like that. I think one of the things that you can look at with where this team really ascended was they are now ranked 8th in the country in sacks. 8th.
That's nuts.
That's crazy for a team that was in the bottom. Bottom.
Was it 8 or 9?
What's that?
Was it 9 sacks? 9 sacks or 8 sacks against Florida State?
They had 8 sacks against Florida State. They had 4 against Ole Miss, but they had 7 against LSU, which had only given up 6 the entire season prior to the Florida game. And I'm just saying that I think we've talked about this as much as people want to talk about offensive coordinator and defense. The fact that this defense is starting to play at an SEC level, I mean, let's face it. If they'd had an SEC defense the last 2 seasons, I got them at 8 wins, 8 to 7 wins the first year, 8 to 7 last year, and obviously they're at 7 this year. But I think you look at the defense is where this team, and for those that want to see, I think you are going to see some exciting offense. You're going to see some plays being made down the road just because I do think the quarterback is that special. But from a football standpoint, what you see is a defense that is now playing with their hair on fire, getting after quarterback, getting off the field on third downs, and then that flips the field position for what Billy Napier wants to do. I'm not a person that necessarily thinks Billy Napier should be the primary play caller. I do disagree with some, and I think he has called a pretty good game. I thought he called a great game against LSU. I thought he called a great game against Ole Miss, and I think he called a pretty good game against Florida State. I do. I think he's done well. Now, has he done well as a whole? That's debatable. But what I'm going to tell people is from a football standpoint, if the defense is playing well, Billy Napier is not going to do anything to put his team in peril if his defense was playing well. And Rob, I mean, do you agree? I mean, that was his MO at Louisiana. He basically said, we're going to show up, we're going to play good defense, we're going to run the ball, we're going to go home. That's who he is.
Yeah. And that's what Kirby Smart did early in his career at Georgia. They'd get up 21-0 at the half, And in the second half, they'd win the game 24-10. They'd sit on it, but they'd suffocate you with the defense. I think the most significant Florida Gator win in football in a long time was after the loss at Texas. They could have come home and had a pity party, but they came out against an LSU team that was a big-time target, okay? And they dominated them. I mean, I'll never forget driving back to Lake Martin from Auburn, listening to Shane Matthews and Sean Kelly on the Gator Network, and I texted Shane Matthews, and I said, man, you do a great job. You're 3 or 4 plays, like y'all have said. He's 3 or 4 plays ahead. Wonder where he learned that from. Steve Spurrier, because that's what Steve Spurrier was like. I had a great NFL official, the dean of referees, Jim Tunney. Had him on the show half a dozen times. He was an official from 60 to the early 90s. He did the Fog Bowl in Chicago. He did the catch with Dwight Clark. He did the field goal with the Colts and the Packers. And he said, you think Tom Landry was this quiet, unassuming man in a suit with a nice hat and a fedora? He said he was wickedly smart, like Spurrier, 3 or 4 plays ahead all the time. But I think that win at Gainesville in the swamp that night against LSU was like a Billy Graham tent revival on the side of the road. The Gator fans were like witnesses that night, and they came out and they supported their team because I learned so much about things that I cover or that I do from other people that see things I can't see. I'm just telling you, the rest of the SEC always, if Florida's not winning, we're like, what the heck is wrong? Well, have to listen to what Brendan says. Have to listen to what you're saying, because there's truth in all this. I don't know if Billy Napier's the guy, but I know one thing. You better get a general manager in today's world so you can coach. That's something. And the February signing date, that's for the coaches that get fired and barely can get a December signing class together, but then they go out there and they do it in February. But I still think that win against LSU was so big. And then you beat Ole Miss. You beat a team that was knocking on the door for the playoff. And you beat them convincingly. And then you go dominate your rival on the road in Tallahassee. And that was a game, that locker room, you're not having off-the-field problems for Florida. These guys have bought in. They're dialed in. They're all in. Urban Meyer, Buddy and Brendan brought him on our morning show about 3 weeks ago. And that's what Urban Meyer said. He goes, you've got to be aligned perfectly. I'm talking the president, board of trustees, board of regents, the chancellor, the faculty, the athletic director, the coach, and the fans. When you have perfect alignment, great things will happen.
I
the
think
money will come.
Rob, and I think that's important. I wanted to ask you about this one as I was looking at my notes and I was reading because I wanted to talk to you about it. But I was actually looking back on the notes from a year ago because I keep show notes and everything. So I was looking back from a year ago.
I love that.
Not just a pretty face. Yeah, I know. Hair. Anyways, it's not a dig.
All right, go ahead.
It's not a dig show.
I got all my hair too. I'm just shaved, but go ahead.
You got too much testosterone. I think it's. I think it's the special. I wrote down special teams. You know, at the beginning, are the issue we were about not having great special teams. I think special teams has been a huge difference maker in a lot of these games. You know, regardless of a muffed catch or not, people don't understand. If you haven't played the game, a muffed catch is you're here.
Yeah.
For just the F up, like bad. And like, and you're here.
Or you're covering and you're getting, I mean, it creates a hazy, I mean, as someone who's returned punts, you gotta focus in. It's a hazy picture. There's a lot. I mean, you're looking into the sun sometime, noon games. I mean, it's crazy. It's a lot.
It's crazy. And there's a saying that, obviously we've all heard, but again, if you haven't played the sport, let's getting your bell rung. Okay. Yeah. And your head's inside of a cave here. And it's like, sometimes it's not the best place you want to be. And when you're not playing well or just any of those, that saying is that or that opposing, and I little bad boy Detroit pissed them in a little bit at the end of this year. There was and that's what FSU planting the flag in on that. I felt like Florida needed to get that edge, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think it starts team I ever was in special teams, because you got to be a little bit crazy and you got to be a wild man to go down there and just fight somebody as you contact.
Well, I would say, I mean, and we've talked about it on the show enough. I mean, special teams are special. We've talked about it. You guys have Urban on. That's what Urban preached. I mean, good football teams, guys enjoy playing special teams. And if you look at the way Florida has been covering kicks this season, minus the one Barry and Brown that they gave up the kickoff return against Kentucky, minus that, I mean, on punts and things like that, you got guys like Jamarcus Weston. I mean, you got Chimera DK, who's a starter, who runs down on punts and has down some inside the 10 and inside the 5 and things like that. Guys have to take they have to take responsibility for their jobs on special teams and what they do. And it's a three-pronged attack. It's three phases of the game. It's offense, it's defense, it's special teams. And, arguably one of the best punters in the country. You can't ignore what Jeremy Crawshaw has meant to this team. I mean, all of those things. And, Rob, you mentioned like a general manager. I know they have a general manager, somebody that handles a lot. What he handles, I don't know. I know Stanford, shout out to Davey Aronoff, because he thinks that I totally disagree, but I'm going to give him a shout out because it looks like Stanford is going to move into that pro model of actually having a general manager from the team president type of thing. I'm not a big fan of that. As a college coach, I'm picking the groceries. I'm going down with the ship, but maybe people will follow suit. Stanford is the first to kind of do that. I think that Billy Napier and any other coach in America deserves to handle his program as fit. If you want a general manager to kind of handle some of that other stuff, that's fine. But if I'm going to be a college coach, I don't want somebody handling me like a general manager in the pros. It's not the same model, at least not yet, So I'm not a big fan of that, but it is going to be Andrew Luck at Stanford that's going to be handling that. And David Aronoff, we've had conversations. He's a big fan of that. But to me, as a college coach, I wouldn't want somebody. I'm the head honcho. The buck stops with me. I answer to the AD, and then I answer to the president. I'm not going to answer to somebody who may or may not have played football, doesn't know as much X's and O's as me. It's not the same. It's not the same model. Now, with that said, and we could talk about that another day, Florida now. You look at Florida and, we could stay on Florida, but you look at Florida in the big space of things, and you got these conference championship games going on. Yeah. If Florida is able to get to 8 wins, Rob, goes to the Gator Bowl and, puts foot in somebody by a couple touchdowns, what does the offseason now look like? Because you're really not going to have what happens to Billy Napier. And you don't have to necessarily, I mean, that's over. And people talking about if Sass was still the president or, I don't think Florida wanted to give up $27 million. Would you agree? No. I don't think they wanted that to happen. No. So, but now at 8-5, what is the talk of this team going forward?
Hey, real quickly though, you talk about the general manager part of it.
Yeah, feel free.
You look at anybody that, a CEO, you've got a chief financial officer, chief operations officer, chief accounting officer, chief administrative officer. You want some people, really what I think a lot of the general managers are doing in all likelihood is they're more with the NIL. So the coach can focus on coaching and recruiting. Right. And when I talk about alignment, it's not perfect at Florida because your president has got to be all in. You cannot half-ass it and have a championship program. Okay. And the president, at the end of the day, needs to remember he's accountable to the board of trustees and to the fans, the supporters. Okay. So going back to the offseason, I think what you're going to see with Florida, they don't have to win the bowl game, but it will help. I think you'll start seeing momentum building immediately in recruiting because uncertainty drives the stock market crazy. Okay. Certainty in recruiting or high probability is a win-win deal. Now, let me just do the math here. State of Texas and Florida and California. Those are your top three in America for putting out. Florida puts out close to 400 D1 players a year. What I do if Florida with your general manager, Billy Napier, go visit every high school in the state of Florida. You know what makes Florida football so great? Outstanding track and field programs. That is such a big deal. And you've got linemen throwing the shot and the discus and doing speed work. But I would go visit every high school in the state. And I would remember, you're the University of Florida, but right now you're going to catch UCF in transition, bury them. You got Florida State is a smoldering dumpster fire, bury them. Florida's got a chance right now to put a lot of distance between them and everybody else in the state. Plant your flag and go out there and own your state in recruiting. You don't have to have one or two sugar daddies to get the kids, but you've got to have a collective, a lot of people putting money in. I'm a bigger fan of the populist collectives than I am one or two sugar daddies. When you got a lot of input, that's a lot more people that care. And you never know, the guy that's giving you $25 a month, a lot of my biggest accounts started out very small, and they're just test driving you and kicking the tires. They want to see that they can trust you to be a good steward with that money. So
Yeah,
Florida, just keep winning.
I agree. I agree with that to an extent that I think, that's where Billy started off wrong. I think when we look, at the whole Rashada thing, that was a really awful way to start this process. And I think that some of that money, and I know for a fact that some of that money didn't want to be involved early on with what was going on. And I think, I got to hopefully that will change. But, and like you said, Rob, it's a culmination of money. It's a lot of people who, that sort of in the past were a part of that. And so now, connecting those old bootlegger runs with bag money back into the, washing that clean and pretended to be new money, that's been a problem. I hate to say it.
Right. And somebody put on here, and I want to talk about this because Rob, you've made note of it, and I think it's worthy of noting is that there's 100,000 plus, correct, in the Grove Collective, right?
No, at Ole Miss they've got over 11,000.
Okay, 11,000.
But I mean, it's actually it's probably 15, 16 now.
Okay,
but it happened. You know what spurred their growth? When Kiffin was playing footsie with Auburn, and Auburn was playing footsie with Kiffin, and it just exploded. And there's a lot of tobacco money.
Right,
got a law school there, so it was big.
Right. But I guess my thing is, and someone says they like how they do NIL at Ole Miss, and that is they put a lot of, if you go out to eat in Oxford, they say, hey, do you want to give the NIL? If you get online in the stadium, and I've seen that for my own personal, I saw it. Before you get on this internet, do you want to give a little bit to NIL? The problem that Florida has is, there are people, and I've spoken with them, that won't give $15 a month to NIL, that have a ton of money and won't give a dime if they think it is going to NIL. Now, the messaging, the presentation, I know Florida Victorious has some really good people working on it, and that there's something that could be that could be done to maybe change the messaging. But I think that it's one of those things where if Florida is going to continue to be a player, and as long as Billy Napier or whoever the next coach is going to be, that there's got to be a better presentation of this thing that that is NIL, because here in Gainesville, and I live here, it is still kind of a taboo word. It is. And it's not just hurting Florida football, but it's hurting the athletic program as a whole. And that's something that's going to have to be, the messaging is going to have to change, because I know some rabid Florida fans that want no part of the NIL. I mean, none whatsoever. But I want to circle back real quick before we get into something else. Brendan, I mean, enlighten me, man. What is your? I mean, you were pretty definitive in your thoughts. So Napier is not the guy. Give me a reason why.
I mean,
I'm not disagreeing with you. It's an open-ended question. It's on you.
I just don't. I look. Like I said, and I don't want to make this a long answer, because there's a lot of, a lot of things is speculation. Obviously, it's my opinion, whatever that means. I just don't feel like he is a Florida guy. I just never felt like he's a Florida guy. I think even now, when he's feeling, some of, like, the power of what it's like to be, the head coach of the Florida Gators, when you have a home game, and when you can harness the power like Spurrier did. Like, he still needed Spurrier to get the crowd into it about the goalposts. He still needed that help. And to me, that just at year 3, you should be the one that is, sounding the rallying cry, rather than somebody to come to your defense. So I just feel like he's a great coach. I don't think he's a great coach in the SEC, and I just don't know if he really is going to get that. I could be wrong. I think he's a great recruiter. I think he's well liked and loved, and I think he really him to do. I don't think he has the edge.
Okay. We're going to kind of engage our listeners a little bit. Michael Burton says not one dime should go to NIL with the ticket prices at UF like it is at Tennessee. Well, I mean, I think from a pricing standpoint, I think Florida is now middle of the road as far as season tickets are concerned. So they're not even in the top half of, I think they're like 8th now, with Oklahoma and Texas coming in. So you could be paying a lot more for season tickets than you're paying at other places. So I think the last time Florida increased the prices, they were 6th. And then when Oklahoma and Texas came in, they dropped to like 8th. So, that's what I'm saying. I mean, there's this messaging, and there's these things that, it's a different, I mean, it's all not the same. And I think you got to look at it with a broad scope. And I mean, these things cost money. It is what it is. And you can get into other things, and we don't do politics on this show, but things cost money. And that's the state that we're in. And, you have a right to choose to play in the NIL space, but, it just, I mean, that's what you got to do. I mean, you got to either commit to it, because teams that are committing the money are the ones that are going to be getting the kids in most cases. Some can do it without NIL, but that's just the way it is. And when you talk about, I mean, Florida, I know has committed more money with the NIL to getting some transfers and things like that, but that's going to be, I mean, that's the world we live in. Am I wrong, Rob, or am I hitting that?
It's the world we live in now. But I mentioned earlier in the show, Michigan, Larry Ellison, the Oracle guy. I mean, he's worth over $200 billion, and his wife. There's no connection apparently for either one of them to Michigan. She just likes their uniforms, and they have picked up 2 5-star recruits. They took one from LSU last week, Bryce Underwood. They took one from Auburn today, Nate Marshall, defensive end, a lineman. He was the 3rd best defensive tackle in Auburn's recruiting class. A 5-star on some lists, but he was committed to Michigan, flipped to Auburn in August. But this is crazy. In the NFL, we have salary caps. Right now in college, we don't. All right, so I don't want to see the student athletes become employees of the university. Then you've got grievances and HR issues, and then you're going to have collective bargaining. They're going to unionize. I mean, we don't want that. I tell you, you and I and Brendan, we all get to be around these student athletes at these different games that we cover. Okay, I will say this: they're as cool as ever. I mean, they love where they are. I think what you got at Florida is you've got a real strong culture, a real strong locker room. You know, stuff happens after a game. You know, Ellis Johnson said on the show yesterday, he's never been a fan of fans being on the field right after the game. 40 years ago, I remember some coaches didn't want their field, the players out there on the field after the game mingling with the other team. Look, we think that what we're seeing now has never happened. Oh, my God. There used to be fights in games back in the 30s and the 40s and the 50s. Flush out your headgear, people, and get with it. This is very, very pedestrian, what we have seen.
Cauliflower ears.
We don't see. Look, now what happened with Michigan and Ohio State? That was crazy.
That was the girliest fight I've ever seen.
that was awful.
It was who is the guy with the flag prancing like he's Prancer Boy? He's like, I've watched that like a whole. It comes from the far sideline. He's just like he's skipping like he's he's prancing. It's the most unmanly fight I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, it was crazy, but
been a slap boxing.
We're just in a crazy world. Look, Yancey Porter from Rebel Yell Hotline, who's on the show with us every week, he told us when Oklahoma was coming to Oxford just a few weeks ago, there were Oklahoma fans that were paying $25,000 and $30,000 to rent condos and houses in Oxford because they wanted to go to Oxford and go on the square and go to Proud Larry's and hang out at Square Books, and that's what they wanted to do. So we've got people, we got a lot of money being thrown around out there, but it's tough when you pay what you pay for the tickets. You expect a return on investment, and that's where you can't do it very long. If you're asking people to pay the money, you better give them a return on investment, or you're going to lose them.
Yeah, no doubt. And we want to talk about our sponsors. Titan MRI, Gainesville, Lake City's newest independent MRI facility. They make it very easy for you. They've got, the latest state-of-the-art MRI machines, very large for people like myself who may be a little nervous about an MRI, kind of claustrophobic. Titan MRI, Gainesville and Lake City's newest MRI facility. Once again, in Gainesville and Lake City. We also want to mention Meldon Law, the only official injury law firm partner of the Florida Gators. If you guys aren't following Meldon Law on Facebook or Instagram, they give a lot of tickets. It's basketball season, so they're going to have a lot more ticket giveaways. They give away some really nice seats for gymnastics, which is a hard ticket to come by, basketball games. Sometimes they include dinner. If you somebody likes to go to shows, they have different tickets for shows and things like that. But Meldon Law, we won't back down. Proven and skilled injury lawyers since 1971. So let's piggyback off kind of the Ohio State-Michigan talk a little bit and come off the Gators a little bit. And kind of not what we thought would be going down in Indianapolis with some of these championship games. But we now have Penn State and Oregon in Indianapolis for the Big Ten championship. Got the Texas Longhorns, against the Longhorns against Georgia Bulldogs. What do you think about that rematch, Rob? In Atlanta?
I think Georgia beats them again. There have been 7 previous matchups where the team that won in the regular season the two teams had to play again in the SEC championship. And so far, the team that won the first time is 5-2 in the rematches. I think Georgia beats Texas again. I think Texas is good. I don't think Texas A&M is that good. Hey, how about this? You had a 12-year head start on your rival Texas. You invested over $1 billion in the football program. Your cheerleaders, do all those cheers, and I don't know what they're doing, but it's they love it. And I got a lot of friends that are Aggies, and they love them.
I don't know what the hell they're doing.
I don't know, but
that's
anyway,
their thing, man. They do it.
But Texas, I think Georgia beats Texas again. We were in Atlanta watching that game Friday night. That was that took a lot out of them. But Kirby Smart, you back that guy into a corner. That team's loaded with talent. And just when people thought they don't really have, they have no Lad McConkey. They have no Brock Bowers out on the edge. But they came up with guys and they dominated Tennessee. I think they will beat Texas again. I think Texas is good. Think about that crowd. That is a home game. Georgia, all those corporate suites and boxes in Atlanta, Home Depot, and all those big corporations, Georgia Pacific, all of them that are there, they're all full of dogs. Now, Texas will have their people there. But I just think, and the game's got to be played on the field. I think Georgia wins again. I was very adamant that they would beat them in Austin, and they'll certainly beat them, I believe, in Atlanta. But they're both going to the playoffs.
Right. Oh yeah. Well, I hate both teams, but I will say this.
Honesty.
I will say this though. I mean, as a guy who likes to hang out, I mean, it would be fun, man. All those Georgia people there in Atlanta, and the people from Austin and in Atlanta. That'd be a nice time. If I had nothing to do, I would definitely kind of just go and be a fly on the wall, for sure.
Yeah.
The other high profile game is Penn State against Oregon there in Indianapolis. Who you like in that one, Rob?
I like Oregon. James Franklin's 1-14 in top 5 matchups at Penn State. They're really good, but they aren't there yet. Now, if they beat Oregon, that changes, the narrative. But I think Oregon's pretty strong. What Oregon's lacked in the past is the line of scrimmage, the brevity, the depth. And I think this team's pretty damn good. I think they beat Penn State, and they'll bring a lot of fans to Indianapolis. Oregon fans, I don't think they'll be driving. It'd be like the Chisholm Trail. But I think there'll be a lot of them flying to Indianapolis. It's an easy place to get to. So, yeah, I'll take Oregon to win.
Brendan, got any opinion?
I just don't like Penn State. So
You don't like their pajamas.
Yeah. I'm going with my boy Franklin. I'm gonna call the upset. I'm calling the upset.
No, I'm Rob.
Calling the upset. I'm going with.
I'm with Rob on that one.
Okay, I'm calling the upset. But other conference championship games in Conference USA: Western Kentucky, Jacksonville State, Mountain West, UNLV, Boise State, which could be interesting because obviously if Boise State loses, that would knock them out of the maybe knock them out of the playoff. They're sitting at number 11 now. Tulane at Army, that'll be played in the snow and muck. That'd be nasty. Big 12 championship, basically winner takes all. Wouldn't you say Iowa State at Arizona State or against Arizona State, not at Arizona State?
Yeah.
Yeah, against Arizona State.
Where is that game being played?
I think at Jerry's World, is it?
Yeah.
That's what I thought. It's in Dallas.
Yeah.
Look,
yeah.
I tell you what I've noticed watching TV, all these games, we have back in the 70s, before 1984, when the CFA decision, Chuck Ninus, the CFA, Oklahoma and Georgia sued, the Supreme Court said, put all the games on TV. Prior to that, you could only be on 5 times in a 2-year period, okay? Back then, football was more of a regional game. We had some national matchups, but it was regional. What we're seeing now, and I predicted this with a 12-team playoff, football is a national game now. Having Cal and Stanford in the ACC, I've never followed Cal and Stanford this closely ever. And now you can't help but do it. SMU's got them a big boy football program right now. A lot of money in Highland Park out there. $150 million they raised in 1 week. Rhett Lashley, why leave when you can stay there and play in a weak conference right now and have that kind of money? But we've made football a national game, and what we've done is we've done just like we done with March Madness. We didn't have Larry Bird and Magic Johnson going at it like we did in 1979 with Dick Enberg. This is it. Make no mistake, that great song by Kenny Loggins. But we have turned college football into a mega national game.
What's your pick?
I have not seen.
What's your pick, Rob? Pick. Penn State, Arizona State.
Iowa State, Arizona
State. I don't know. I got me talking to. I was in like 1972. I didn't know what the hell was going on. Rob.
That's all right. Listen, that's all right.
Cyclones.
I'm
Storm Chasers.
yeah,
Okay,
that's
good. I'm
that's
gonna pick
shout
it.
out to
I got Arizona State.
shout
I
out
think-
to Matt Campbell, Iowa State. We played in the same conference in college, so he's a Mount Union guy. MAC championship is OU at Miami.
Actually, I think did you guys watch Arizona State last week? I mean, they're playing great football.
Yeah,
right
they
now.
are.
They're
They
really
are.
playing great
Yeah,
football.
they are.
Kenny Dillingham.
I got Arizona State.
Doogie Howser. That's who he is.
They're
Marshall,
one of the better teams playing right now.
Sun Belt, Marshall at Louisiana.
Mhm.
That'd be Billy's boys. And then the ACC championship, we mentioned number 12 Clemson at number 9 SMU. Could also be a winner take all kind of game. Who you guys like in that one?
SMU.
Pony Express.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Rhett Lashley learned early on, Gus will throw you under and in front of the bus. Gus tried to do it his way, and now he's going to be guessing people's weight in Tallahassee or whatever he's doing over there. Rhett Lashley is one of the best coaches in America. The guy was an innovator, even on the staff with Gus as his coordinator.
Mm-hmm.
I think, what are they, 11-1?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And they got a few players there in Dallas.
Yeah.
No doubt. No doubt.
Here's
And
the problem. Ellis Johnson, yesterday, remember, Brendan, his son's a preferred walk-on over there with Dabo. I don't think Clemson's beat a ranked team this year. And
no, I don't think they have.
you might be right.
No, they haven't, because we talked.
I like the ponies in this one, and I just think that, golly, I mean, there's this weekend. Here's the cool thing: these conference championship games, even if they're not in the Big Ten or the SEC, are relevant again.
Mm-hmm.
This is March Madness with pigskin.
Right. Well, if you're Miami, you're definitely rooting for SMU, because if Clemson would win, I would say that would knock, because Miami's sitting at 12 now. The playoff rankings were Oregon 1, Texas 2, Penn State 3, Notre Dame 4, Georgia 5.
Oh yeah, where's Notre Dame this weekend?
Ohio State.
Oh
6.
yeah,
Okay, but, you know, I'm a traditionalist. I like the independence of Notre Dame. Tennessee 7, SMU 8.
Their little bed,
Indiana
like bed
9. I said I like the independence. I said it. 10 Boise State, Alabama 11, and Miami 12. So what could, I mean, you know, you got Ole Miss at 13, South Carolina at 14. I mean, outside of, I mean, it's almost pretty much set. The only team that could really find themselves on the outside looking in would be either probably Boise State or Miami, would you say? Just because of the
strength of schedule?
Well, just based on where everybody is right now. You know, you're not going to see Penn State drop out with a loss. Georgia's not going to drop all the way out, I don't think, with a loss.
Too big a fan base.
I mean, except for, I mean, yeah, because Alabama's already in. They may flip-flop. I mean, who could drop out? I mean, Boise State, I think, would drop out with a loss.
I think we'll see that. Don't you think, Rob? I mean, Boise State would be the logical one to me.
To drop out with a loss.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. And because you got to have that one at large. But a lot of people thought SEC might have 4 or 5. SEC is going to be lucky to have 3. And I think that, golly, Alabama, I felt all along. No, here's an argument. South Carolina, they didn't beat Alabama, but Ole Miss, they played South Carolina. They're trying to say, well, we're a better team now. Well, the matchups in head-to-head have to matter.
They matter. They have to. Right.
And you look at Alabama, I mean, I got a lot of Alabama friends, and they're good people. But they'll tell you, they'll go, we don't really deserve to be in the playoff this year. They'll take it if they get it. I said, well, you're going to get it.
Well, but
you're going to get it because you're Alabama.
Because
let's put this out there. We talk about deserving, and once again, here we go. Okay,
the best teams versus deserving. That's the argument,
right? So, are we picking the best 12 teams? If we are, then I think we would all agree that Alabama is one of the top 12 teams in the country.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like,
so you got Alabama. Just hear me out. Hold on. Let's just do it. Comparative.
Point of parliamentary procedure.
Right. Alabama, versus Miami. Who wins?
I don't know.
Bama.
Alabama versus South Carolina again. Who wins?
That's a good question.
Okay.
Right now, if they played tomorrow,
Because I don't know how
I'd
good
say South
Miami is.
Carolina.
Alabama versus Ole Miss.
Where's the game played?
Neutral field. Line it up. Gainesville, Citizens Field, Gainesville.
Ole Miss.
Okay. That's fine. So that's 13-14. Now, Alabama versus Arizona State.
Alabama. But I don't know.
Alabama versus Iowa State. You do know, Brendan. Come on. You know.
Because I've seen Alabama play piss poor about some pretty bad teams this year.
I
they
understand
play
that,
down to their opponent.
I will agree with that. But you got to bet you got your last dollar. Who you betting it on?
I'm not betting on Caleb DeBoer. No. How about that?
Okay.
Because I don't think he's the guy either.
I mean, I think what we're going to have to get used to, and I tell people this, and we talked about it here on the show, it used to be, we've got to get this, we almost have to, now this is where I think you have to think like NFL. You have to think, it used to be one team, one loss, you're done. 2 losses, you're definitely done. We're going to have to get out of that headspace with the playoff with 12 teams. There are going to be some 3-loss teams that are going to make the playoff, not just this year, but every year. There's going to be so much parity. The SEC alone is far too competitive. I think you're going to have, and everybody's like, they can't make the playoff with 3 losses. You're going to have some playoff teams with 3 losses. You just are. Either they're going to be the conference champion in their conference, or they're going to play a schedule like Florida played and have 3 losses. I mean, think about it. If Florida would have lost in overtime to Tennessee, by 7 to Georgia, and by 7 at Texas, let's just say in a hypothetical world, they wouldn't be pretty good sitting at 9-3.
Yeah, it would be.
Well, nobody would want to play Florida right now. I'll tell you.
Right? That. Yeah. I mean,
I'm not a purist. I guess I just played in too many basketball and baseball leagues as a kid, like round robins and everything else. Mm-hmm. It's performance, right? And like to me, it's like get everyone. That's why I bitch about the domers. Like get in a conference, everyone play in a conference, have a conference championship, line them up. Maybe have a wild card or 2. Or maybe a wild card for each conference, and then maybe get your playoff out of that. But you should be performance based. I don't like the strength of schedule.
Well, but I mean, to Notre Dame's defense, everybody was in love with Navy and Army, and they boat raced them.
Well, sure. I mean,
help me out, Rob. I mean, in this year, Notre Dame. I mean, I get it. That's a whole nother conversation for another time. I mean, I missed the day. Like I said, I'm a purist. I think it should be 10 teams in the Big Ten and all that, and you should be in the Midwest and that kind of thing. But what I'm saying is, that's a different. But I think we all could agree, outside of the Northern Illinois loss, which is head scratching, Notre Dame has done enough to warrant the playoff, I would say.
I do. I agree. And I think what we got to also accept the fact
don't
is
play by the rules. Yeah, sure.
The guy
that enough to warrant it, but they don't play in a conference championship. And it really would screw. If Alabama were to lose, how do you think they feel about the conference championship?
Well, Alabama's losses to a 5-loss Oklahoma team, or now 6-loss Oklahoma team, a Vanderbilt team that lost 6, Vanderbilt, period. I mean, that's just unacceptable. Okay, 6-loss Vandy, a 6-loss Oklahoma team, and a 2-loss Tennessee team. But what we have to accept is this fact. The guy this is where we talked about it this summer on our morning show with Tyler Siskey, who worked at Ole Miss, and he's really knowledgeable and worked with Nick Saban, is that the 2 and 3s on the depth chart for these SEC power programs, they're all screwed up now. They don't look like they used to. So the guy that used to be 3 or 4 years ago, a 2 or a 3 backup at Florida or Georgia or Auburn or Alabama or LSU is now a starter at South Carolina or Vanderbilt or Indiana. And you've got to have analysts that know where these guys are, because they move around and they're not waiting. I'm already seeing movement in the aisles at all these different schools, guys going in the portal. Now, the free market will correct this. We've got 6 years worth of data from October 15th of 2018 to the present in the transfer portal. What you're seeing, we've always had kids transferring. It's a ticker like the bottom of the screen with, breaking news. That's the difference now. Now, it used to be harder to transfer, but if a kid doesn't want to be there, here's what Dabo's philosophy is at Clemson, I've been told. I don't like the portal. I look at it like this. If I recruit Brendan at 6'4", 245 pounds to be an edge rusher.
212.
Yeah, 212. And I recruit him to come there. I'm saying when he played his ball. And a year or two Brendan's not playing well. I'm going to say, look, you don't need to hit that portal. I need to put more pressure on myself and my assistant coaches to develop you better. We owe that to you. Now, Dabo, Coach Bryant in the late 60s when the substitution rules changed in football, had 3 5-loss seasons in a row. I'm telling you, they wanted to fire him in Alabama. In the offseason, Emory Ballard, Darrell Royal showed him how to run the wishbone. They go out there to the LA Coliseum, the first game on a Friday night in 1971, and line up running the power eye in the warm-ups, come out there on the first possession running the wishbone. Like, what the hell is this? Guys, great coaches adapt, improvise, and overcome.
Yeah, well, we've seen that with we saw Spurrier with the fun and gun. Obviously, we've seen it, and we've had in-depth conversations with Urban Meyer about how you win with the read option. And how he won with the read option at Colorado State, and how he won Utah, and how he successfully would win games with not having the best personnel on the field by strategy, scheming, and motivation, and all that other shit. I get it, all of that, but we're in there's like a new sheriff's in town, like there's a new college football in town. Well, and I think we're adapting, to that, and that includes covering it and everything else. But to your point, Lauren, the parity is going to obviously continue to get more because now you don't have to get in the NFL. You can go play, you could start somewhere and show off and still be in D1 and not have to wait to play and still get the attention, right? Because your team's going to go 10-1 or whatever. Right. You might play in the college play, and maybe you're the catalyst, but you're not having to go to Alabama and wait till your senior year to start.
Well, and I can change my situation. I can change my outlook, my situation. My quarterback leaves for the NFL. Now I go, instead of having a redshirt freshman throwing to me that's not a DJ Lagway or such, I can go where they have an experienced player, and like a Trey Harris, I can go and catch passes from a Jackson Dart, or I can, like Juice Wells, they didn't know, I'm sure he left because Rattler left. Even though nobody knew that Lenore Sellers was going to be what he was. So Juice Wells goes to Ole Miss and different things like that. So, you can change your fortunes through this transfer portal, through all of these things that are in place. And I agree, Rob, sometime or another, it's going to steady itself because I think people are going to either A, get fatigued from it, or B, there's going to have to be somebody or a czar put in place. People talk about general managers in football, in the football team. But I think what you're going to see is maybe a drive for a commissioner of college football.
Oh, yeah.
I think you might see that prior to and that kind of thing. And as we close, a czar, so to speak. I know who my pick would be, but I think you're going to go ahead, Rob.
Well, no, I was just going to say, I'll call him a commissioner because things didn't work out too well for the czars, the Romanovs. I don't want to. I saw that documentary, man.
Put him in a room and went to work on him. But
I see what you're saying, and what's wild is that we think this stuff is we've been here before. In 1923, the Southern Conference had 23 members. We have seen this before. Can you imagine the news story today when Sewanee in 1899 played 5 football games in 6 days? And on the seventh
That's a
day,
great
they rescued-
documentary, by the way. You guys should watch that.
Yeah, we've had our
that's a
friend
great
Norman
documentary.
Jetmanson on the show that did the documentary with David Cruz. And if y'all ever want him on this show, he's an incredible guy, Sewanee grad, an attorney in Birmingham. And my God, what they did to make that now they got a new coffee table book you can see behind me out there called Unrivaled. But we have been here before. Far worse. In 1906, 19 players died playing college football. We damn near lost the game of football. Let Tony Barnhart, next time he's on this show, tell that story. He's in that documentary. Norman and David spent a day with him over in Dunwoody. And we'll have him back on the show Friday. But, Lauren, your knowledge of football, and Brendan's as well, is off the charts. It's incredible. That Southeast Ohio.
I think you got a pretty good database yourself there, Rob.
Yeah.
Well, but it's cool
that's what makes this show what it is. is we got some really good people, and
but
you throw Franz
really
Beard
cool.
in there, and I mean, guys that I think that's what makes this group and the connection and the partnership between SEC Sidelines and the Buddy Martin Show. Hit that like and subscribe, and before we go, throw it on up there, Brendan. We want to thank our final sponsor, Rinstar Medical Research. Seeking tomorrow's answers to the health questions of the day. And definitely appreciate their support throughout. They've been with us basically as long as I've been with the Buddy Martin Show. Absolutely. So
shout out to our boy.
Absolutely.
Brantley.
Yep. Scott Brantley still fighting a good fight. And the Brantley family and the all those involved with Rinstar Medical Research. I want to go on this and just to, give a shout out to the fans just so they know basketball is in full bloom. Got Virginia Cavaliers coming into town tomorrow night at the O-Dome versus the men's basketball team. And then the ladies team will be heading to Clemson Thursday night for the SEC ACC Challenge. So, get involved in that as well. Shout out to both programs, Coach Ty Golden and Coach Kelly Ray Finley. And really appreciate you coming on, Rob. I mean, it'll be an interesting weekend. Before I let you go, if there's one thing that you're looking for this weekend, what do you want to see most?
I want to see the SEC get as many teams as possible in the college football playoff. I'm biased. I'll admit it.
All right. Brendan?
I want Florida to get an offensive coordinator. Oh, wait.
That's next week's show for sure. I don't think it's going to happen. Don't get your hopes up.
No, I want go Notre Dame.
All right.
Go Domers! I think they got it this week.
I want to see this thing. I want to see this thing shake out. Just see it shake out. What it looks like on Sunday night. And I think we'll be. And either way, here's the thing about me is like I told people when the transfer portal and all that came out, the field is 100 yards, 53 and a third wide. No matter what, we're going to have a great first year of a 12-team playoff. And if you love football and love this game, you can't ask for more. Thanks a lot, guys.
It gets better every day. That's all I can say.
Absolutely.
See y'all in the morning.
Appreciate it, man.
Good night.
Thanks, Brendan. Great job.
Good night, everybody. Thank you.
Night, John.